Picking an exterior paint is one of the biggest decisions you can make for your home. If you get it right, you are looking at a beautiful, protected house for more than a decade. But if you get it wrong, well, you could be scraping, peeling paint and starting this whole process over again in just a couple of years. So, what really makes the difference?
Well, what's really interesting is that the most common mistake, the one that almost guarantees failure, it actually has nothing to do with the price tag. It's a fundamental error that a lot of people make before they even pick a color.
I'm sure you've seen this story play out. You spend a ton of time and money painting your house, and for that first year, it looks fantastic. But then, a couple of years later, you start to see those first signs of trouble. So why does this happen so fast? It's not just bad luck, and it's not just the weather.
The real problem is actually a mismatch in chemistry. See, different parts of your house are made from different materials, and those materials behave in completely different ways. Your wood siding is constantly expanding and contracting with the seasons. Your metal gutters are always trying to rust. A paint that works perfectly on one of those is going to fail spectacularly on the other. So this brings us to a really crucial concept, especially for a surface like wood siding. It's called elasticity. The best way to think about it is like a rubber band. As your siding expands a tiny bit in the summer heat and then shrinks back in the cold, the paint needs to be flexible enough to move right along with it. If it can't stretch, it just gets brittle and cracks. And that, right there, is the beginning of the end for your paint job. And this really illustrates the point perfectly. For your wood siding, it's all about that flexibility, that stretch. But your metal gutters, they couldn't care less about stretching. What they need is a paint that chemically bonds to the metal and actively stops rust from ever forming. See, using a standard house paint on a metal gutter is kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a leaky pipe. It's just not the right tool for the job. Now, even if you pick the absolute perfect paint formula, there's a whole other half to this equation. And this quote says it all. Durability is 50% product quality and 50% surface preparation. You could have the most advanced paint in the world, but if you try to put it on a dirty, unprepared surface, it is going to fail. We're going to come back to exactly what that preparation looks like in just a minute.
So this really forces us to shift our whole goal. We need to stop hunting for the one best brand of paint. The smarter approach, the way the pros do it, is to match the right formula to each specific surface you're painting. So with that in mind, let's look at some logical solutions based on the challenges we've been talking about. For those large surfaces that expand and contract, like your wood, masonry, or stucco, there's a specific answer. For the trim and doors that need that really sharp, clean finish, there's another. And of course, for metal that's prone to rust, there's a third, completely different solution. So for your siding, a product like Hills Exterior Premium is a great example of what to look for. It has that high elasticity acrylic formula, that's the flexibility we were talking about, the stuff that lets it move with the house instead of fighting against it. It's also a paint and primer in one, which is great, and it even contains mildewcide, which is absolutely essential if you live somewhere humid. But for your trim, your shutters, and your doors, you're looking for a totally different effect. This is where something like Rust-Oleum's Painter's Touch is ideal, because it's designed to give you that crisp, clean, professional-looking finish. That contrast of a semi-gloss trim against a flat siding is what really makes a house pop. And its 2x coverage formula just means less time spent on all that detailed work. And finally, for any metal surfaces, gutters, railings, you name it, you absolutely need a specialist. This is where an oil-based formula like Rust-Oleum Stops Rust is really the only right choice. It doesn't just sit on top of the metal like a latex paint would. It actually chemically bonds to it and actively fights rust, creating a barrier that other paints just can't match. Okay, so you've matched the right chemistry to each surface. You're halfway there. But remember that 50-50 rule we talked about? Well, your most important work, it actually happens before a single drop of paint is even applied. Here are the 4 steps you just can't skip. First, you have to pressure wash to get a perfectly clean surface for that new paint to grip onto. Second, scrape and sand any little bits of remaining peeling paint so you have a smooth, stable foundation. Third, caulk all the gaps around your windows and trim. This is what blocks water from getting behind the paint. And finally, always apply 2 thin coats instead of 1 thick one. It creates a much stronger, more durable finish. And here's a little pro tip that can make or break the final look of your job. Never paint in direct sunlight. The heat literally bakes the paint onto the house almost instantly, before it has time to level out properly. This is what causes those ugly, permanent brush strokes and lap lines. The trick is to follow the shade around your house as you work. So if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it is this number. A full 50% of how long your paint job is going to last has nothing to do with the paint itself. It's all about the work you put in before you even open the can.
In the end, getting the paint job that lasts for a decade or more, it's not a matter of luck. It's not about buying the most expensive can on the shelf. It's simply a matter of understanding the science, matching the right chemistry to the right surface, and then preparing that surface the right way.
If you want to dive a little deeper and get the full breakdown of these products, including some really useful coverage calculators for your own home and even more advanced tips, all of that detail is waiting for you in the original article.